Welcome to Native Talk Arizona, presented by Native Health and KRDP 90.7 FM. Later in the show, host Lanasha Pawadi chats with film director, writer, and photographer Tomás Amaya.
I'm Susan Levy, and on the phone with us today is Bob Dalton. He's an entrepreneur, a TEDx speaker, and the founder of Sackcloth and Ashes, a company that donates a blanket to local homeless shelters for every blanket sold, which I think is pretty cool. He's recognized for inspiring local action and has been named a Forbes Changemaker and a CNN Champion of Change. Hello, Bob, and welcome to Native Talk Arizona.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Super excited to hear what you have to say. So before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and your background.
Yeah, I'm from Oregon. Grew up in a little coastal town in Oregon and moved to Central Oregon when I was 19 and was able to be a part of a nonprofit organization there for about 5 years and got to help start the nonprofit, which helped kids in the community. And that's where I got to gain a lot of my entrepreneurial skills of how to build a team, how to form a committee, how to call people on a mission bigger than themselves, and got to be a part of a lot of community change where I was at in Oregon. And when I was 24 years old, I was transitioning out of the nonprofit sector and trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And during that same time period, my mom went through a series of events and ended up finding herself living on the street. And that completely changed my paradigm of homelessness and inspired me to do something about it. So I started calling local homeless shelters in my community to see what they needed, and they said blankets, and that's when I came up with the idea to launch a business called Sackcloth and Ashes, where every blanket that we sell will donate a blanket to your local homeless shelter. And that's how I entered into what has now become a decade-long business. We're going to have our 10-year anniversary on June 1st, 2024.
Pretty cool. So I know I'm going to jump around a little bit, but how many blankets have you donated to homeless shelters?
Yeah, there's about 416,000 that have been designated to different shelters in the United States. We donate to over 600 shelters in the States. And over the years, we've been able to build that database up to where it's now one of the most robust databases of shelters and programs in the U.S.
Wow, that is impressive. Okay, so, and I know you also do motivational speaking. So how did you get started in that?
Yeah, it really started during the time where I was a part of that nonprofit. I was speaking to a group of high school kids about every week, of anywhere from 50 to 100 kids every week. And when you start speaking to high school kids, you start to figure out really quickly how to be a dynamic storyteller and speaker in order to keep high school kids entertained for a 15-minute talk. And so that's how I really got into speaking, was I was speaking to high school kids, and then from there it just started building up into other opportunities of being able to share at nonprofit galas and fundraisers, and now I speak often for corporations and at conferences.
I think that was probably really good training. I can't think of an audience, well, maybe younger youth, that don't have an attention span or an interest in a lot of things. So I'm sure that was very good training.
Exactly.
I think, trial by fire. So what's your message when you go out and do your motivational speaking?
Yeah, my message has developed into what I'm calling localism. It's a philosophy that I'm really building on right now. I'm actually writing the Localism Manifesto, which is my take on what localism is and how it's going to benefit society moving forward. And I've arrived at that philosophy because I've had the opportunity to not just donate blankets to shelters around the United States, but I've gotten to visit a lot of them. And over the years, I've kind of had a front row seat at some of the best work that's happening in the U.S. that's solving societal issues. And one of the things that I arrived at once I got to tour around over 40 cities was that if we're going to see progress, like true progress in our communities and in society, it has to happen on a local level. And we've too codependently relied on the government to solve our issues, or corporations, or large foundations to solve our societal issues. But they've obviously fallen short in the type of progress that we need. And it's because that a lot of these solutions that need to be created to help our communities, they have to come from a grassroots level. They have to come from a local level. And that requires also everyone to have a role. Everyone needs to be a participant in a small way. And we've kind of had it backwards over the last decade where we're relying on, large organizations or the government, and not many people have an opportunity to do something other than to volunteer or donate money. And I just think there's a lot of other ways that people can contribute. We just haven't had the opportunity to in creative ways that's been provided to us. And so localism and making a local impact has become my main message. How can I help inspire people and empower people to engage their communities and make a difference where they're at?
I agree. It's got to be at the local level, and people need to be interested, and you're correct, be engaged and actually get out and do something. And I think if more people did that, more things could happen, more good things. Totally agree with your message. So what do you think are the biggest challenges that people face now?
I think people want to do something, but they don't know where to start. And I think that there's a lot of people that they actively are tired of seeing different things that are happening around their communities or their society, and they want to contribute. They want to do something, but they're having a difficult time figuring out what is their role. And so two things. One, if somebody wants to make a difference and they don't know where to start, I always say answer two questions. What brings you joy? That's the craft that you love to do, the thing that wakes you up in the morning. A lot of people build their entire careers off of what brings them joy and what they're good at. The second question is, what injustice do you hate? What's the thing that causes you to lose sleep at night? What's the thing that's either been done to you or you've seen something in society that really bothers you? And if you can do what brings you joy to bring relief to the injustice that you hate, that's when you have found your purpose, the thing that you're supposed to dedicate your life to. And so on a personal level, finding out what that is for you. For me, it was homelessness over the last decade because of what happened with my mom and what I've been able to see in my community. But for other people, it might be something completely different. So step one is figuring out what that is for you. And step two is finding an organization or a group of people that are serving that particular issue that you can join in on. And so that's really what I encourage people. And that during COVID, I launched the website loveyourcity.org. And it was a website that we built from the ground up to where people can search their city and find what organizations are in their city and how they can get involved. And so it's one of the most well-designed and most accurate website to help you find what is going on in my community that I'm passionate about and how can I join them.
You definitely are a good motivational speaker, because I think it's true. You have to find your passion, and you're right. What you're excited to do every single day, every day. So do you have any advice for individuals on how to approach understanding others from different backgrounds or different points of view?
That's a great question. I think that number one is, like, from a dignity level, is understanding that we are more similar to people than we are different than them. So when you see somebody, like, homelessness is a great example where Princeton did a study where when we drive by people on the street, we process them as objects. And, to make the connection from, going from a place where you're just driving by people on the street and you're not able to recognize them as a human being, to understanding the level of empathy of this person is a mother or a father or a sister or a brother to somebody, and they've fallen on difficult times and they've had a difficult life or a lack of community. I think that understanding that those people are actually more similar to us than they are different from us. And I think that's the start of building bridges, is understanding that we are all more similar to one another than we are different from one another. And that's going to be the beginning of being able to build real bridges. I
agree. I think too often that people don't treat other individuals with respect and compassion and dignity. So I resonate with your message.
And one more thought on it too, like we live in a society now where it's very ideology driven. So you cling to your ideology and then you go to war with everyone who disagrees with you. And I think that as a society, we need to start connecting in our similarities rather than disconnecting in our differences. And I think that's where there's an opportunity for us to build a lot more bridges in society, because we're quick to say, this is what I believe, or this is the ideology that I'm going to cling on to. And everyone who disagrees with this, then I'm going to go to war with them on it. And I think that there needs to be more of an opportunity for you to really hear out and learn from the other side and the other perspective. And we need to start connecting more in our similarities than disconnecting in how we differ.
Very well said. All right, I'm going to circle back. Let's go back to Sackcloth and Ashes. So I know you have a new legacy collaboration with the Navajo weaver Naomi Glasses and her brother Tyler. When did you launch that?
Yeah, we launched it later last year, and we've been able to partner with Naomi now for a couple years. That was actually the second collection that she designed for us. And I found her through Instagram and reached out to her and asked her if she'd be interested in designing a collection for us, and ended up working out. And me and my team were able to go out to Navajo Nation and shoot an overview of her story and her background. And she's an incredible human being, one of the best humans that I've ever met. And she has such an incredible story. And she's a true artist and a true localist, based on my philosophy that I'm passionate about. She is as local as you can get when it comes to living where she's from and caring for the people that's in her community. And she was just a perfect alignment of someone who we wanted to partner with and highlight her story. And it's been a great partnership over the years. She's an amazing person.
So, yeah, she is amazing. She's an incredible weaver, but actually an incredible human, as you said, as well. So when you talk about donating blankets, buying one, and then donating one, do you donate any blankets to any places at on the Navajo Nation?
Yeah, we've donated a lot of blankets through specifically organizations or people that Naomi's connected us to. And I know that there's been times where her and other organizations that we've teamed up with, one of them is called Chiz for Che. They do firewood for elders.
Yep.
And we've donated blankets through them and through Naomi to different elders in the community. And the way our donation model typically works is we donate based off of zip code. And so if you buy a blanket and you live in, Scottsdale, Arizona, we'll donate a blanket to the closest shelter in Scottsdale. And so that's typically how it works. But with Naomi and the work that she's been doing on the res, we've donated either through her or through Chiz for Che to help to distribute blankets to the elders there.
Okay, very good. We've had both of them on the radio show. So, so how do you make the blankets?
Yeah, so all the fabric is made out of recycled materials in Florence, Italy. They're a manufacturer. It's a little town over in Florence that has been making fabric for over a century. And the fabric starts with recycled materials, so like T-shirts and sweatshirts. They get put through a carding process, grinded up and turned into yarn. And it goes through like a 7-step process before the fabric's even made. And then the fabric gets shipped to our production hub in Oregon, where we cut, sew, label, polybag, and do all of our own fulfillment. And so it's been an awesome process of both supporting a community over there and making product that we feel good about, both ethically and sustainably, and then shipping that fabric to our production hub in Oregon, where we do most of our operations.
So how it works is, so if I went online to Sackcloth and Ashes, I could buy a blanket, and I know you said like if it was Navajo, I could buy a blanket, and then you would just automatically donate one, whether that was through Naomi or one of the programs up there. But if it was in Phoenix, It would be the same thing, right? Like if I bought something at 85012, you would find the nearest shelter and then donate one for one, correct?
Yep. Yeah, and you can view all of the shelters that we give to on sackclothandashes.com/shelters.
That's pretty cool. Do you have a very favorite success story or memory with one of the blankets?
Not to like dive into this deeper, but I think that partnering with Naomi has been one of the biggest honors for me personally. The last shoot that we did with her on the res for the Legacy collection, we stood in a circle after we shot the photo shoot, and I was like, Naomi, I want to let you know, like, this is an honor of a lifetime. Like, I'm going to be able to tell my grandkids that I got to partner with you. because I think she's just going to be massive. Like she already is, and I think she's going to continue to be as successful as she wants to be, and it's because she's an incredible human being. I think that's the secret sauce of why she's done so well and why she's been able to collaborate with companies like Ralph Lauren now. And it's been amazing to see how far that she's going. And I tell her all the time, I'm like, this is just the start. This is just the beginning of whatever you want to do. Success is an illusion, and you're going to be able to do and accomplish whatever you want in this life. And partnering with her is one of the coolest things that I've gotten to do through the brand. Our collaborations, whether it's with her or anybody else, is always the funnest part of the company.
Very cool. All right. So what piece of advice do you hope that everyone gets or people get from your presentations, your book, and your blankets? I know you've already talked a lot about that. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, the message is, and I really do believe I'll dedicate the rest of my life to it, is making a local impact. And, that could be as hyper local as making an impact in your family or making an impact in your community. But the blankets all come in boxes now that we just switched to. And the boxes, on the top of the boxes, it says make a local impact. And when you open up the box, there's a QR code that sends you to a page on our website to give you 3 options of how you can make a local impact in 3 different ways. And then when you pull the blanket out of the box, on the bottom of the inside of the box, it says take it a step further, place the following items in this box and donate to your local shelter. And it says, lip balm, Band-Aids, snacks, and you can fill the box up with items and donate it. And so in everything that we do, whether it's through our messaging, whether it's through our storytelling, whether it's through our packaging, we want to inspire people to take a small step in making a difference on a local level. And I believe if we all do that, if we all play a small role in making a local impact, we're going to see significant change in our communities.
Very true. I hope people listen, and I hope they do something. I hope they take the small step. I hope they find their joy and then do something small. And I think if everybody did that, what a difference that would make. And finally, how can our listeners find more information about your collaboration with the Glasses family and learn more about Sackcloth and Ashes?
Yeah, you can just visit our website, sackcloth.com, sackcloth.com. And the Legacy Collection and Naomi and Tyler and the family are on the front page of our website. So you can view their collection, and then when you click on their collection on the homepage, it will take you to a place where you can actually watch their video and us highlighting Naomi and Tyler's story.
And if somebody buys a blanket and lives up at Navajo, then another blanket will be donated up there, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
That's awesome. Very important. All right. Well, Bob, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us today. I really appreciate it, and I love your messaging, so thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Coming up on Native Talk Arizona, host Lanasha Pawati chats with film director, writer, and photographer Tomás Amaya. Support for KRDP 90.7 FM comes in part from Native Health, with 2 locations in Phoenix, 4041 North Central Avenue, Building C, near the corner of Central Avenue and Indian School Road, and at 2423 West Dunlap Avenue. Native Health is also located in Mesa at 777 West Southern Avenue, near the corner of Southern Avenue and Extension Road. Native Health provides primary medical, dental, behavioral health, WIC, and wellness services for the urban Native American community. For more information, call 602-279-5262 or visit our webpage at nativehealthphoenix.org.
Welcome back to Native Talk Arizona, presented by Native Health and KRDP 90.7 FM. I'm host Lanasha Puati. Tomás Amaya is a creative director, film director, writer, and photographer, a wellness instructor for the Native Wellness Institute, and a co-founder of the Indigenous 20-something Project and Native Love Stories. Hello, Tomás, and it's an honor to have you on our show today.
Hello. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me to be on.
Absolutely. And before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, of course. Keshi, hello. Hot Tomás Carmelo Amaya Leshana, home Tita Carmen Amaya Leshana, home Tachu Tomás Amaya Senior Leshana. My name is Tomás Carmelo Amaya, and I am Ashwi and Yoeme on my mother's side. Her name is Carmen Amaya, and I am Raramuri on my father's side. His name is Tomás Amaya Senior. I'm married to Sierra Begay, who is Dene, and we have a 4-year-old daughter named Hesea. We currently live in Phoenix, Arizona, but we travel quite a bit.
Tomás, can you tell us more about your work as a creative director, film director, writer, and a photographer?
Well, it kind of spans a very long time, but I'll do the short version for sure. It just has to do with being around storytellers my entire life and being encouraged by those around me to express with any tools that I had around me, including just, being with friends and telling stories, or maybe it was drawing. And then when I had the opportunity to use a camera, back then when I was thinking about just the possibility of doing it for a living, I think it was on the back of my mind, but it didn't really dawn on me. And fast forward from then, and I started taking some steps to test myself, make sure it was something that I could do. And then, long story short, it's just been a learning process throughout. But there's definitely a longer version of that.
Is everything you kind of started, were you self-taught?
Yes, definitely self-taught, but I'm a firm believer that I'm community-made, not self-made. I like to make that distinction because I feel like the household raised me, my loved ones raised me, my neighborhood raised me. I was raised in West Phoenix, near 43rd and McDowell, and I feel like just the daily experiences influenced my mind. I have a mentor that says the world shapes our mind and our mind shapes our world, and I feel like that really helps describe that feeling. And his name is Gene Tagabon. He's a storyteller, and he's another trainer for the Native Wellness Institute. But I feel like there was people that were around me, for example, like my sister, who was interested in photography. There was a few uncles that were interested in photography. My dad would make things with his hands since he was a kid. He would make some things even for my mom when they were dating. And I feel like having family members like that around me definitely encouraged having a creative side to me, or even being open to the possibility.
Oh, yes, definitely. No, I completely agree. Our surroundings really influence how we grow up and kind of everything that we do. So does your creative work incorporate Indigenous teachings?
Yes, I feel like inherently, because I'm an Indigenous person, it's going to incorporate Indigenous teachings, but I am more mindful to know which teachings they are that I'm putting into practice. And I frequently have conversations with my peers, with my loved ones, and even just moments of reflection to make sure that the work that I'm doing is in alignment with my cultural values, my cultural teachings. And so that's always going to be part of the process when I'm creating something and co-creating something.
Has being raised by traditional healers influenced your work and kind of an outlook on your life?
Yes, especially on my maternal side, many grandmothers were considered the traditional healers within their communities. and that influenced some of my uncles and influenced my mom and her siblings, and that also was something that affected me and my sisters. And so it influences the artwork in the way that it shapes the perspective. Why do we create something? What is the purpose of making, let's say, a photograph, a film, a song, or another craft? Is it to uplift somebody? Is it to help them move through maybe grief and loss? Is it to celebrate? And so if I had to answer those questions for myself, I'm always looking for an opportunity to bring healing to people and to communities. Sometimes that entails talking about things or writing stories that involve, heartbreak or darker times. But in the process of doing it, we never know how that can help an individual move through their grief and loss. And so I think when we view art and other forms of expression as a tool for healing, then it just adds to the possibilities of people that can move through their healing journey. And so that's definitely central to the work that I do.
Oh, yes, definitely. I definitely can see that in all of your portraits, especially your filming. As you mentioned, it does give a lot of expression, and you can definitely kind of go through and see the healing process. And kind of talking about your films, can you tell us more about some of the films you've produced?
Some of the films that I produce that stand out, I feel, one of them is Native Women on the Front Lines. And at the time, I was very much in the early stages of dating my now wife. And so I'm even like smiling right now thinking of just like our love story and how everything unfolded. But go back to 2016, and this is when the Ocheti Shakon resistance camp was happening in Standing Rock, North Dakota. I was living in Chicago at the time. My wife was living in Page. She was born in Fort Defiance, but moved to Page. We were talking long distance, and long story short, we finally got to meet for the first time in person in North Dakota to show our solidarity, to show our support with the Standing Rock tribe. And I think it was the second trip, but in that second trip, my wife and I decided to create a short film called Native Women on the Front Lines. I don't even think we had that name for it. The idea and the intention was to document her process of participating in a march for murdered and missing Indigenous women and relatives. And I asked permission, is it okay to film this portion of your healing journey? I think this could be potentially really helpful for a lot of people. And she said yes. And I remember one particular time we were up on the hill. Those who know, if you know, you know, that was called Facebook Hill, where you can get reception. But we were up on that hill, and I remember hitting record and just having her speak. And it was just, the words were flowing and flowing and flowing from her. And she tied the destruction of the land of Mother Earth with the same treatment that a lot of our women and relatives receive. And so that film, I think, is one of the most important films I've ever made, because it incorporates the love for community, the love for Mother Earth and everything sacred, and then now the love of my life. So.
And for those that aren't familiar with watching your films, where can they watch this Native Woman in the Frontline film?
Yeah, there was initially a place where it was distributed on Facebook, and we couldn't find it recently. But there is, I'm going to be putting a link up on my website, which is www.tomascarmelo.com. I'll make sure to link that film. If it's not on there already, I have to double check. But the other films that I'll reference, you can watch them there as well.
Oh yes, definitely. We can. That is actually where I watched a few of your other films, and one of them that really resonated with me, because I'm a mother too, is the one that you've made of your wife, the She Who Rises. Can you tell us more about this short film?
Yes. So this film, She Who Rises, came about right after our daughter was born, and if we think back, this was in 2020 was when one of the peaks of the pandemic was happening. So 2021, we were still in the middle of the pandemic. So if I think back, this was shortly after her birth, so 2020. She was born in April, and one of the things that we're encouraged to do from our mentors is, in these moments of hardship, what are those tools that we could lean into to move through, to get by? And so my wife and I felt, we know that the world is seemingly crumbling down and there is a lot of unknowns, but one thing that we are sure of is our love for our newborn daughter and the love that we have as a couple. So what can we do to honor these feelings and create something that is going to be healing, that is going to be visual medicine, so that our family members can experience that love and that feeling with us. I almost was unsure if I could be with my wife at the hospital when little Hosea was born. And we weren't able to have the aunties and the grandmas and the other relatives around as we normally would because of the restrictions of the pandemic. And so we wanted to, again, create a short film that would make those feelings palpable, that would make it feel like, someone was holding baby. And the name of the film, She Who Rises, comes from her name. As soon as Sierra said her name, I knew immediately that was the one as well. She said Hosea, and she's like, I heard it before and I like it. And I said, well, I really love it as well. And then we started talking to our family members, and they described how Hosea means many things, but it means she who rises, she who grows older, and other meanings as well.
I thought of your spirit and how you came in a time of resilience as the world is fighting for their lives. I thought of your ancestors and family who have prayed for you to arrive safely. I thought of your daddy Tomás and the unconditional love with which you were brought into this world. I thought of the corn pollen path that you have and how blessed I am to be there as your mommy, guiding and caring for you every step of the way, my love. Surrounded by Harjon. Welcome to the glittering world, my sweetheart.
I did not know that story behind it, but now knowing the backstory and seeing the film is just so beautiful to hear and to see it as well. So kind of stepping back a little bit, what got you interested or first interested in filmmaking?
Specifically filmmaking, I noticed that since I was a kid, I just love things in motion. Just anything in motion. I'll be in the backyard, playing with sticks, throwing rocks, and I just seen how the leaves moved in the wind, things like that really intrigued me. So as I started to wrap my head around the fact that film is photos in motion or multiple photos creating motion, that just really piqued my interest. So I think it kind of, there's no clear point where it's like, this day I started. I feel like it happened in tandem with being interested in photography. But it happened at an early age. So at that early age, I started kind of taking mental notes, seeing what I liked, um, trying to pick people's brains about like why they made certain choices. And once YouTube came around and other resources, I was able to like really dive in and understand the process of filmmaking. So there's no clear point, but
Oh, wow, that's awesome. And
I
so
was I was I was younger.
yeah, so it was really a journey, and that is so amazing to hear. And kind of looking back at one of the first films you created and one of your latest films, how has your film work evolved?
I think one of the biggest differences between the earlier work and this work is maybe capacity and the ability to have the resources to hire a bigger team. With our production company slash creative agency, we're really big about hiring BIPOC collaborators, um, and we were able to do that most recently when we did a project. It was in collaboration with the Snoqualmie tribe in the state of Washington and Brooks Running, and we had a probably a bigger crew than we had ever had previously, with the exception of a few other projects. And so it really allowed us to show what we're capable of, and to just bring more people into the storytelling process. And so that's the biggest difference, is the scaling of how big the crew is. And actually, I'm very happy to share that particular project, which was Running with Respect, earned an Emmy nomination for the Pacific Northwest. And so we were the official production company, and it's one of the highlights of our time as a creative agency.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. And I bet it felt very rewarding that you are telling stories and everyone is really kind of in tuning in all of those feelings that you are putting out there, and kind of talking about the awards and recognitions. Can you tell us more about what other awards and recognitions you've received?
Yes, and again, I want to clarify something. So the name of the project was Run with Respect, not Running with Respect. As I was thinking about that, I'm like, oh, that's gonna irk me. But it's the project we did with the Snoqualmie tribe and Brooks Running is called Run with Respect, and it highlights their ancestral lands movement. So shout out to the Snoqualmie tribe, shout out to Jamie Martin and Louis Gong, and just it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. In terms of other projects where we've won an award or had recognition, that would have to be Tacona. We did a film as part of there was a grant application, and once you applied to that grant, if you were selected, you got to submit your project to be considered for an award. And so we submitted that project for this organization called Art with Impact. And Tacona has to do with addressing toxic masculinity within our indigenous communities. And truly, it centers itself around uplifting the connection we have to our matriarchs. And that one was selected as one of the winners for that year of the submissions. And then one other one would be definition of resilience. It was a project I got to co-direct with my dear friend Alex Salih. She's out in Alaska, and that film definition of resilience was selected for the Santa Barbara International Film Festival.
Wow, that is amazing how successful and all the recognition you've received so far with all of your work. And I know you just mentioned that one of your most current projects was Run with Respect. Are there any plans or any works for a new project that you're working on?
There's been a project that we've been building very slowly. It's kind of like a slow cook. We talk about like making a stew or menudo or pho. It's called Native Love Stories, and it's a multifaceted project that involves photography as well as filmmaking. My wife and I launched it a couple of years ago, and it's all about highlighting Native love in all the ways that it appears. And we talk about how even stories about like interracial relationships or relationships where someone has maybe passed on, or just taking the whole picture of what Native love can be and celebrating it, really making trying not to leave anybody out, because only then will we have uh, the totality of Native love. Like, we need to hear these stories. And so there's been a lot of excitement in terms of that. We have a bit of a following. It's at Native Love Stories on social media, but you could check that out, and we'll be working on that.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. And I did definitely see that. It is very beautiful to see, and it does really show the embracing of Indigenous love stories from around the world. Tomas, has kind of talking about your film, kind of when you got started, have any directors inspired you or kind of the work that you do with film?
Yes. One of the directors that really stands out to me is Ryan Coogler. His earlier work in, I think, he's in California, so he was raised in the Bay Area. He's from the Bay Area, and I even watched his student films and was completely inspired and moved. And to follow their story through the filmmaking um, career or process, they went from short films and doing student work to then getting some support to do Fruitvale Station, which is a very sad story, and then to move from there to ultimately creating the movie Black Panther. That's the same director, and so I really appreciate their work. I've been studying their work for a really long time. Ryan Coogler, and then I really like the work of Tasba Rose Chavez. She's a friend, and just seeing their career unfold has been really beautiful. I respect them as a poet, as a writer, and as a matriarch, and it's just really amazing to see other Native artists achieve their goals on the highest level. So shout out to Tasba as well.
And kind of going into more into your photography work, can you tell us more about the portraits and photography that you've done?
The underlying feeling or state of mind has to do with being intentional and being present, being loving. I like to think as everybody as somebody's loved one. That's everybody on set. That's everybody on the other side of the call. That's everybody who they go home to as well. And so when creating portraits and photography, I think of it as such a blessing, such a beautiful opportunity to connect with another loved one and to tell a story together, whether that story is about them and something that they're going through, or something that they've wanted to show about themselves, or something that we're trying to say together in solidarity or in celebration or in sometimes mourning or sorrow. It's these opportunities to connect on a human level and have them to look back to or to look forward to. It's creating something tangible, and that's the same idea that goes into creating the things for motion as they are for stills. But stills, in one end, there's a few more things that you can, I think, achieve in its own. For example, I'll be more specific here. It's like I still love having a sonic or audio aspect, which is like what music is playing as we're creating these images, or what music is playing while we're editing the photos. But in terms of like recording audio in tandem, it doesn't necessarily have to happen every time. And so I think there's elements in photography that are definitely distinctly different than creating films.
And would you say, kind of like in photography, is it easier or harder than directing films to get those expressions or emotions that you want?
I don't know if evaluating it from a harder standpoint or easier. I think as long as the people that I'm collaborating with share a same mindset, then we're going to achieve what we set out to do, if that makes sense. So it's like, are we in alignment in terms of what it means to be healing and trauma informed? Do we know what it means to react versus respond? A lot of times I'll have conversations with people way before we're even creating an image, and that helps build a relationship and a trust and a respect for each other. And I think that in general, that process helps any creative endeavor. For me, I don't ever want to skip that part. And I'll talk to certain collaborators, and I've talked to collaborators in the past and say, I don't really see where we've carved out time, or where, not even the carving part, but where we've intentionally built time and a process around being intentional. So can we have those conversations?
And going into your writing aspect of all the work that you do, what writing do you do? Do you do the writing? Because I know some of your films kind of have like a poetry expression to it behind it. Is that areas that you kind of incorporate into your films, is the writing portion?
Yes, writing is its own process in and of itself. Definitely, I've been raised with the oral tradition, whether that's telling family stories or cultural stories, or I even include telling jokes. Jokes hold information, they hold laughter, they hold love. And so I've always observed those things. And then it got to a point where it's like, okay, I can write some of these things down, and it's just another tool to visually see what our words are doing. So at an early age, I really started to appreciate how writing things down was another tool. And I wrote some of my first poems when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and then continued writing. When it came to a point, I started writing more verses, like hip hop verses, which I consider and embrace as poetry as well. And that's as told by the originators or Black relatives. And so it's an art form that I really love and respect, is writing in all its forms.
And would you say your creative work is creating visual medicine and healing?
Yes, definitely. The conversation of creating visual medicine happened with my wife when we were thinking about, if we had to describe what is the work that we're doing, what is this thing that we're trying to accomplish with our work, the word visual medicine came up. And when we pair that with the work that we do with the Native Wellness Institute, which is very much having conversations about healing and what a healing journey means, and on top of that, putting our principles into practice, that all just has formed into this really beautiful path for us. And so it's very central to our relationship.
And Tomás, how can our listeners find more information about your work, and how can they contact you?
A few places you can check out my work include my website, which is www.tomascarmelo.com. And on social media, my handles are at Tomás Carmelo. Those are the main places. I don't post as often as I used to, but I'll be posting more. And that includes some music projects that I'm working on, so make sure to stay tuned for that. And those are the main places.
Perfect. Well, I'd like to thank you, Tomás, for coming on air today, just telling us your journey of how you started your work, giving us a glimpse of all of your current projects and also upcoming projects, and kind of giving us the history and backstory of the films and the photography really all the work that you do, which is pretty amazing. I'd like to thank you for taking time out to talk to us today.
Well, thank you, Lanasha. I really want to express my gratitude as well to you for taking the time to have this conversation, to Native Health and all the people, behind the scenes that it takes to create a program like this, and also to just serve community. I think it's truly an honor, and I look forward to future collaborations as well.
Thank you for listening to Native Talk Arizona, supported by Native Health and KRDP 90.7 FM. Audio editing by Javier Quiroga, and the executive producer is Susan Levy. And I'm host Lanasha Puwadi. We hope you tune in again next week. If you have any questions, please email us at nativetalkaz@radiophoenix.org.